And under Biden, it's danger, death, and destruction all over the world. That's what it's been. It's been a disaster. Whether it's the borders, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Ukraine, everything is broken. The whole world is broken.
Well, folks, Donald Trump, whether you like him or whether you hate the guy, he's absolutely predicted a lot of the things that have taken place over the last couple of years, and his latest prediction might actually be coming true as well, which is the start of World War III, which could begin really any day now, with Anthony Blinken just coming out and saying that Ukraine will eventually become a member of NATO, which of course, if they do, and Russia of course is in a direct conflict with Ukraine, Article 5 would then be invoked, and at that point we are absolutely going to be in a shooting war with Russia, and of course that's pretty much going to be the start of World War III. So here is Anthony Blinken saying that yes, Ukraine is eventually going to become a member of NATO.
Remains rock solid. We will do everything that we can. Allies will do everything that they can to ensure that Ukraine has what it needs to continue to deal with Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine, an aggression that gets worse with every passing day. Ukraine will become a member of NATO. Our purpose at the summit is to help build a bridge to that membership and to create a clear pathway for Ukraine moving forward.
But, of course, we believe that Ukraine deserves to be a member of NATO and that this should happen sooner rather than later.
So obviously this is some very scary stuff here. So according to Fox News, Ukraine's potential membership in the 32-member alliance is seen as partly why Russia invaded the country. Sweden officially joined NATO on March 7th. In response to his remarks, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio called Blinken's statement, quote, irresponsible. He said that Ukraine should not join NATO, and to invite them during a war is to invite our nation into a war. Do you want American ground troops in Ukraine? If not, we must push back against the idea that Ukraine should join NATO. Let me know in the comments section below. Do you agree with what J.D. Vance is saying there? Ben Shapiro also took to X, formerly known as Twitter, and he said that Joe Biden will cause World War III through his utter and complete stupidity. He said, here is his current position. The United States is willing to go to direct war with a nuclear power by admitting Ukraine to NATO. The minute Ukraine joins NATO, Article 5 will be invoked, and we are then in a shooting war with Russia. He said, second, the United States is demanding a ceasefire from an ally in Israel in a war with a terrorist group holding hostages, including Americans, in a conflict involving precisely 0 U.S. troops. Iran and its terror proxies now know that if they murder over 1,000 citizens of an American ally, take hundreds of hostages, and then hide among civilians, Joe Biden will save them. It is nearly impossible to believe one human being could be so stupid, but Joe Biden always surpasses expectations. Let me go in the comment section. Joe Biden, his parody account at least, said, my handlers will cause World War III. I'm just a sleeping man. Give me a break. And then Elon Musk, the owner of X, said this is extremely dangerous. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you believe with what Ben Shapiro is saying there? Do you believe that World War III is going to happen? Do you believe what he's saying over in Israel, that we should be backing Israel more in its war against Hamas? And really what I find most interesting is that, it wasn't that long ago, well, actually it was a long time ago, that Joe Biden was, in the firm belief that if we did expand NATO and allow all these other countries like Ukraine in it, then that's only going to, result in a direct conflict with Russia. So here is Joe Biden way back in the day when he was still a government worker in politics saying exactly that. Watch.
Unfinished business. You said earlier in your discussion, well, what about the Baltics? Well, what about the Baltics? If you could tell us what their prospects are for expansion.
What about the Baltics and what are their prospects? Their prospects are real but more distant. And I think this is me and only me speaking, not speaking for the administration or anyone else in the United States Congress. And I obviously, to state the obvious, I could be dead wrong about this. I think the one place where the greatest consternation would be caused in the short term for admission having nothing to do with the merit and preparedness of the country to come in, would be to admit the Baltic states now in terms of NATO-Russian, U.S.-Russian relations. And if there was ever anything that was going to tip the balance, were it to be tipped in terms of a vigorous and hostile reaction, I don't mean military, in Russia, it would be that.
So that was his position before, but now it looks like he's more than willing to allow Ukraine, while it's in the middle of the war with Russia. I mean, they are in no interest. Ukraine does not want to end the war with Russia. Russia doesn't seem like they really want to end it either. Where is the off-ramp in this war with Ukraine and Russia? Both sides need to give in a little bit to end this war. And while they're in the middle of a war, we're just going to add Ukraine to NATO. I mean, once again, that's only going, I can't really think of another way that this is going to end other than a World War III with Russia, Iran, China, and all these other countries. Things are not looking good. And, you know, once again, Donald Trump predicted all this to happen.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine. These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world, and now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it, and I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades, and that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars. We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America Last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace. And now we're going to complete the mission. The State Department, Pentagon, and national security establishment will be a very different place by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago. We never had it so good. We'll also stop the lobbyists and the big defense contractors from going in and pushing our senior military and national security officials toward conflict, only to reward them when they retire with lucrative jobs, getting paid millions and millions of dollars. Take a look at the globalist warmonger donors backing our opponents. That's because they're candidates of war. I am the president who delivers peace, and it's peace through strength. There was a reason we had no conflict. There was a reason we didn't get into wars, because other countries respected us. I entirely built, all right from the beginning, rebuilt our military. It's a big reason for that. They didn't want to mess around with the United States, and now they're laughing at us. We could end the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours with the right leadership. At the end of my next 4 years, the warmongers and frauds and failures of the senior ranks of our government will all be gone, and we will have a new group of competent national security officials who believe in defending America's vital interests above all else. Thank you very much.
So again, let me know your thoughts in comments below. Do you believe that Donald Trump is right on this? Do you believe that we are headed to World War III, perhaps within the next year or so? There was actually a recent survey by YouGov that showed that most Americans believe that we were headed towards a World War III, but that was a longer time frame. This was actually in another 5 to 10 years. So most Americans, according to The Hill, say that there will be another World War in the next 5 to 10 years, according to a new YouGov survey. Around 61% of Americans in the survey said it is either very likely or somewhat likely that another world war will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. About 18% of Americans in the same survey said that they are not sure about the likelihood of another world war in the same amount of time. So most Americans believe that we are headed towards that direction. And another interesting thing is back in 2016, whenever Trump was elected, everyone was saying, oh no, we are definitely going to be headed towards a world war. This guy is a maniac. We're going to have a stock market crash. Our economy is going to go downhill. We're going to get in this terrible, terrible war. And well, 4 years later, we actually did not end up in another war. The stock market did terrific, other than in 2020 where we had that slight dip, and then of course it recovered. And then whenever Joe Biden comes in, well, we have all these wars that take place. Someone who is supposed to be more of a moderate, someone who is supposed to, kind of bring everyone together. Well, guess what? That ended up in just, more wars. So again, let me know in the comment section below. Do you trust Joe Biden more to, continue on for another 4 years, starting in January of next year, or do you trust Donald Trump to come in and fix things across the world? Let me know your thoughts in comments below. But that's all we have for today's video. I certainly hope that you enjoyed and found value out of it. If you did, again, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video.